I'm going to try and express some thoughts I've been having, compiling some thoughts I've been having over a period of time, probably over the last year, couple of years. And it's in relation to the work that I'm doing as a painter, and also from an emotional point of view, which is probably in my own particular circumstance the greatest influence on why I would make a painting. It's not really out of an intellectual formulation, although I enjoy thinking about art and I enjoy reading about other people's thoughts, as well as obviously looking at artworks. But the inspiration, I think, is a very personal thing. It comes out of an emotional source. Probably even what I would like to refer to as spiritual, not in a religious context, but something that is not of this world as we understand it. Of course, it's of this world. Everything is of this world, who we are. But it refers to a continuity, and the idea that I've been formulating, and what I'm going to call this, is blood in the soul. And it's an idea, concept I've been building in my own mind, and I have what you see, I'm going through a series of paintings that represent this feeling that I have of blood in the soul. And of course, Fukushima is intimately connected to this, but even beyond Fukushima, what I think is going on, what I think I'm being influenced by greatly, is the idea of blood in the soul. And what I'm going to try and express, and what I've been trying to express through my paintings, is directly related to an immediate threat that we face through radiation and the poisoning that is occurring on all levels. There are many people out there that have ideas and thoughts and observations, from chemtrails to this fellow called Manny Skywatch. He's very preoccupied, and justifiably so. He's coming up with compelling videos on sky formations that are very unusual. What the hell is that about? I think it relates to a threat, and I'm not sure if I can actually verbalize this properly, but I'm going to give it a shot. And the idea of blood in the soul, it comes out of partially some studies I did in Kabbalah and understanding the language that is used by Kabbalists. And they rely on the letters, the Jewish alphabet called the Ot. And the Ot is actually primarily numbers. So we're dealing with equations. And I'm not a mathematician, but I understand an analogy, and a mathematical analogy, or something in physics as Einstein equals mc squared. I think it conjures in people concepts, visions, ideas. Of course, the E equals mc squared has been completely, totally destroyed in any reasonable, what I would consider to be of value to humanity, to understand that the energy released by a tiny amount of mass is so gigantic it becomes a nuclear weapon, a bomb that destroys all life. This is obviously not what Einstein had in mind. I would hope Einstein did not have this in mind, but it is contributing to the blood in the soul. And here's my point. I'll try to synopsize this feeling that I have. And that is, as I've commented earlier on the idea of the wine press, the biblical parable where what we might consider to be contained in, as I say, we don't have a soul, we are contained in a soul, and we are poisoning that soul. And now, I don't want to be confusing in this, because there is a biological poisoning going on massive, epic scales, never witnessed in the history of this planet. And I will just qualify that as saying man-made history of this planet, We have now reached a level of perfection to create toxicities on a level never experienced before. Possibly if you're sitting in the middle of a volcano and the spewing, the gases that emerge out of there, which are deadly, but they stop, and the planet has time to recuperate, to recover. Nuclear fission cannot be stopped. Once it's set loose, it keeps on going for millions of years, which is the pinnacle of this destruction, which is the pinnacle of the blood in the soul for us. And the soul cannot take this blood. Blood refers for me to the physical world. And the soul is a component, is a part in us, it's a part that we are a part of that is separate. We need to keep it separate, but it's now, in my mind, I have this curious vision that we are crossing over this physical world into a realm that is actually polluting the soul. The blood, the physical blood is entering this. I can't even verbalize this entity that I feel that we're contained in, and our intelligence, our ruthlessness is actually now poisoning the soul. The blood is in the soul. And the paintings that you see that I'm putting up are references to this destruction of our soul. And what is of great sort of the word would be, it's like I'm terrified of this concept, by the way. We talk about fear. There's fear and there's fear. And the idea that we could literally eradicate through our consciousness, our existence, a portion of this soul. And people say, oh, well, this soul is so gigantic. It contains the entire cosmos that we're aware of. And of course, this is so expansive. It's a mystery. We have no clue. We don't know. But I have this sense, this feeling, this idea that we are polluting the soul, not just this earth, this planet, ourselves, the destruction, this potential catastrophic extinction level event called Fukushima and all the other plants and all the other poisonings from Monsanto, the food, the water, the pharmaceuticals adding their little bit to this. Where is this coming from? That's a whole other story where this is coming from. But what we're complicit in is the pollution of the soul. And now my concern, my fear, my terror in this is that literally we are giving up something which is so monumental in its implications for what is considered to be consciousness. Consciousness being that which is prevalent through the entire cosmos as far as we can look, as far as we can see, and beyond. And the idea to actually be complicit in the destruction of something that is not physical now. We are using the physical universe, the physical reality, to express this blood into the soul. Think about it. Think about it. It's frightening. It's frightening on a fundamental level. The terror that people face. We have our own challenges personally. People are committing suicide. People are dying. People are afflicted with horrible diseases at very young ages. Children getting cancer. This is insane. It's insanity. People standing by saying, oh, my child is 5 years old, has a brain cancer or has a cancer of some part of their bodies. They're vulnerable, weak bodies. Our immune systems are being destroyed. But beyond this physical destruction, what I am trying to communicate and say, that it's possible through my own intuition, my own understanding, that we are actually injecting blood into a soul that does not want this blood. We are destroying. I don't know how this would work, but wow, this is even beyond the destruction of our planet, the poisoning of our planet, our complicity. We are on our watch at our time. This is happening. And I just thought I'd put this out. I'm going to call this video Blood in the Soul. And put some works into the background to my commentary. There's so much more to say on this other than I don't want to make this too long, but there is a lot to say. I'm going to be making paintings based on this concept that it is inclusive of what my advocacy is to express this feeling that I have, the way other artists in the past have expressed their deepest, most profound insights, intuitively mostly. They use their intelligence, their mind, in order to formulate and try to put it together into a comprehensible form. If you look at a Vincent van Gogh painting, they're quite acceptable to people now, but it wasn't like that for about 50, 60, 70 years. They were considered to be the ramblings of a madman, an insane person. Vincent was the most sane individual on the planet. I believe he was painting this notion of blood in the soul. He understood. He liberated a color that I call this a liberation of the color yellow. What he actually contributed, what his gift to humanity was, is to liberate yellow from the mundane, from the earth, to actually exalt it into what it was meant to be in our minds, in our hearts, in our understanding, to separate us, the physical world that is destroying this soul. This soul is being destroyed through what we're doing to this planet. And I'm in a tradition of, I align myself in a tradition of artists and people of conscience, what I've said. I align myself with people of conscience, and there will be attacks and detractors on all levels, because there is a fascinating there is a fascination with death, the idea of devil worshipping and these dark forces in our nature which exist, don't exist. I actually don't believe in the dark forces. I believe is that blood is entering the soul, and we're no longer capable of separating the two, which creates what appears to be a dark, devious entity. It is the blood in the soul. We need to separate the blood from the soul. Yeah, this blood in the soul. I'm trying to wrap up this these thoughts. It's my fourth, fifth attempt now. It's kind of like the idea of the separation of church and state. The idea that give unto Caesar. It's the idea that somewhere we need to be able to draw a line. We are capable of existing in this domain, in this physical domain, but there is a relationship, a direct relationship with the other world, whatever that other world. There is no proof. No one has ever come back, or this whole transition from this life into another existence. There is no proof. All we have is our intuition, something that connects us to that other. And unfortunately, the destructive part of us, I believe, has now actually infiltrated. It's kind of like the poisoning, the physical poisoning, has tremendous effect. I don't know why I feel this way. I'll give a quick example of, I once was part of an organization called Noetics, founded by Edgar Mitchell, the astronaut, and another man called Paul Temple. And I was at a conference that was called On Death and Dying, and I think it was On Death and Dying and the Continuity of Consciousness or something. I mean, what an arrogant sort of title, actually, On Death and Dying, and sort of the assumption of what comes after. And I remember being in a forum and discussing and talking about the idea of consciousness, and there was this assumption, this hubris, that we will continue into the next level of consciousness, and we have evidence in this world. You walk over coals and you supersede your physical world. It's evident, as people being able to accomplish incredible feats that are beyond physical. The point being that there is an assumption that we all make, that as I don't know what to call it, a believer. A believer says, you know, it's like when I die, I exist in another dimension. I go on. Well, maybe yes, maybe no. I don't know. However, one thing I do know, that this is not something as I have experienced in my own life. Everything that we actually accomplish is earned. We don't get a freebie, especially on the big ticket items. We don't get a freebie. Now imagine this, that consciousness is sort of the pinnacle of our existence, that if it does continue, I actually believe it does, but it requires work, it requires effort, it requires us to do the right thing. It requires conscience. And in this forum that I was involved in, there was this sort of general assumption, yeah, well, you die and you go on. Well, what if, yes, in principle this to be true. However, if the effort is not there, you're part of this wine press. You're crushed. That soul that we are a part of does not accept this sort of slovenly behavior, this sort of, okay, well, let the planet die. Let's destroy it. Let's get rid of it. That's what I'm thinking here. It's not a given. We are not given this thing in order to destroy it. Maybe it's even a test. I don't know. And we're now coming up that this blood is entering the soul, and the soul finds it extremely difficult. The blood, meaning not just the physical world, represents this as the toxicity of nuclear, of chemicals, of the elements in our biology that are not conducive to keeping us alive, the destruction. This translates on a spiritual, emotional level into hate, anger. Righteous anger, I believe anger is necessary at times, but this hateful part in us, these emotions, these dark, ugly emotions that are actually infiltrating the soul because we have opened this toxicity on a physical level, and it's now going into the spiritual, emotional plane and infecting the soul. The blood is in the soul. The blood from this existence is transferring itself into the next, and this is a very, very bad idea. Very bad idea. I'll try it this way. I'll wrap it up here. The blood in the soul is a scary thought for me.